give you a shout out and thank you for being obedient to God's word and creating this, coaches Bible study and really ministering the verbiage servant leader, because it's not communicated enough, I think, in the marketplace when it comes to us as coaches and entrepreneurs and in different areas of life that we do serve, and leadership's at the top, but servanthood starts at the top as well. And so but we go to the bottom to give. So I'm just, I'm humbled to be on, and I thank God for our connection, and I've been following you and I've been watching what you were doing. So I just want to thank you for being obedient
Thank
to
you so much.
Christ.
Thank you so much for that. I really appreciate it.
Awesome.
Well, we're going to go ahead and let you just kind of chat with our listeners for a little bit. There's a lot of questions that I have that I'll shoot, but I tried my best. We've been talking about, and this is how I kind of kick this portion off, because you've tapped in as we started the month of April. As you all know, the month of April marked the year anniversary of the Servant Leader Fellowship and podcast. And that's only by God's grace. I mean, starting that through the pandemic, and a place where coaches and leaders and athletic professionals, we lost seasons. We, didn't know what was to come, and we were having to lead these young men and young women in a time that we didn't even understand or have never been through. And so this format and this platform has truly helped to kind of strengthen us, build these connections like you and I have this connection I'm thankful for. So can you just kind of start off a little bit? We've been talking about this servant leader's arsenal. And when I think about that word, like arsenal, what's in your tank, like what's in your toolbox to be a servant leader? Can we start off a little bit there? Like if I'm talking to you as a leader, you've been in the coaching world, you have your own organizations. In servant leadership, if we're talking about an arsenal, what are some of those things you think should be there?
So for me, being, where I believe wearing many different hats. When you talk to me about, what is your title? Who are you? What do you want to be known as? And I called my business partner, one of my best friends. I said, Coach Chelsea asked me, what do I want to be called? What's my title? And I said, I wear so many hats. And, when I think about all of those hats that I wear, as far as launching my own company and coaching and running a grassroots youth program, if as short for the AAU world, and running that organization and getting obviously rejected because of COVID during last season and having to cancel that season. And there was something that stuck out to our process last year. And we talk about the what's in your arsenal, and it's our ability to understand the parent, how parents feel as coaches, and being able to touch our parents. And I believe inside of the servant leader, we're not just serving our young people, but we're serving an entire household. As a coach and entrepreneur, I always talk to parents as if we are a partnership raising your child, raising your daughter. I really specialize in working with female athletes. Basketball is my specific sport, but I've been able to start tapping into volleyball programs as well. So being able to build relationships and serving our parents, whether it's education, whether it's things that they need. We've come to find out and I know this didn't happen a lot last year, but when COVID happened in AAU, we were right in the middle of, we just had tryouts. We were going to have nine teams, was going to be our largest season. We felt led, and, God just put on my heart, said, yes, everybody paid, but let's go ahead and give them their money back, because we don't know what's getting ready to happen. We don't know that, most people have already paid for their tournaments. They've already pushed out all their expenses. And, for us, we've been very good stewards over our finances. And a great mentor of mine a long time ago told me, if you ever wanted to fully coach full time and to be able to give young people what it is that they need, you might want to think about being a great steward of your finances first, because it's very, very hard to finance your life and then to pour into someone else's. So when I think about that arsenal, I think about the full package of being able to serve the entire household, and not just coaching those young people by themselves, but literally creating a partnership. So I think about arsenal. I think about you have a tool with you, and the tool that I bring I believe, to the coaching world is that I'm able to relate to parents, and it doesn't matter what background they come from. It doesn't matter, if they're rich or poor, they're coming from the inner city, which I've coached a lot of inner city kids. I've also coached a lot of suburban kids, where they're driving nicer cars than me, and really understand the dynamics of, okay, so this is the product of their parents. Who are their parents? I want to get to know who they are. And it really enables me as a coach to put the full circle family together. And I'm able to coach that family as individuals. That's an individual family. And so when we're communicating as coaches, I always want to make sure that we're talking to families and not players. We're talking to young women, but I'm also talking to an extended family of ours. So right now we house in our AAU organization, we have about 22 families. We don't have 22 girls. We don't have 22 high school students. We have 22 families, because it is mom that reaches out and says, hey, my daughter's going through this. It's dad that may reach out and say, hey, I need help on this. So I believe inside of my coaching arsenal, it's really been able to communicate with parents and being able to grab their attention and understand, listen, yes, I'm making an investment in your daughter, and I'll say son, because I run into some young men as well that, we like to talk trash and build relationships with sports. But I'm even though I'm invested in this young person, I really want to know where they came from and what it is that they need. And I think the communication between parents and coaches, I believe it has to get better. I believe it's an area that we all can grow in, but I believe inside of the servant leader arsenal, if we can find a way as adults to really start pouring into some of our parents, I think we can see some good things coming from our young people, because they're seeing, when they see coach and parent get along, man, I'll tell you what, it's a great day. And we know that doesn't happen. I know there's some things going on right now where, there's conflicts between coaches and parents, but I believe inside of your arsenal, your servant leader arsenal, the ability to communicate and build relationship, not just with the player, but with the entire family, because it is a family unit that is trusting me, that is trusting you, coach, to steward their seed, steward their children, to be a part of something that they trust. And I believe it is a triangle fold relationship where you have me, the coach, then we have the player, and then we have the household or the foundation, because maybe, coach, it's not a parent. I have kids right now that are getting raised by their neighbor that I'm coaching right now. When I picked my young kid up for AAU practice, I didn't pick her up at her home. Her neighbor is raising her. Why? Because mom is grinding right now. And so we have young people that don't have a foundation. And so we have to find someone in their life that's an influencer outside of us to be able to connect, so that we don't lose that kid, or that we can enhance the experience of that young person. So I believe, like I said, inside of that arsenal, just the ability to tap into the entire family that we're called to lead as coaches.
Coach, that's huge. Okay. I was sitting over here. I do a good job. Complete thoughts be finished, right? But I'm also a Baptist kid, right? I grew up, we throw stuff when folks say a word, okay? And so I'm sitting here trying to keep my seat. But the first thing comes to my mind, and I put it into the chat, is that it takes a village to raise a child. And that up on, granted, yes, I had my mom, but then it was my grandparents. It was so many different people who are still in my life today and will check me. I'm grown. Right? I have a little one of my own, and it doesn't matter. I will still be checked. And the key piece that happened was because the coaches, the educators, the mentors were tapping in on the same page with the parent. And I love that. The other portion that you pointed out is, though, unfortunately, there's a breakdown because many of these babies that we are coaching and leading, they don't have that parental aspect. And so if we can do that, as you mentioned, communication and relationships is huge. But there's a key piece in here, Coach, that I'm going to ask you to expound on, because I loved it. Okay. Because I love it. I think in leadership, it is a key piece, but it's also, I believe, and if it hadn't been, you pushed it a little bit further, even if somebody had mentioned it, but stewardship. Stewardship is huge in terms of servant leadership. And as the word tells us, if we're faithful over a few things, he will make us rule over many. The problem is, he can't trust us with what we have, right? And so I want you to expound a little bit on that stewardship piece to the listeners out there who maybe never heard that, right? Or to the listeners who they've heard it, but really don't understand what that means. You mentioned being a good steward of your finances. Talk a little bit about that just for a second so we are clear, because that was.
Absolutely. And coach, and I'll say this, I come from a background, I was raised in a Kojic church, Church of God in Christ. My grandfather is a pastor. He's been pastoring for well over 50 years. And
I can see it in you, coach. Can see it.
So I was raised in the church. My dad is a PK. And so just to let you know, I was raised around giving. I was raised around tithing. I was raised around Malachi 3:10. I was just raised in an environment where, if my grandfather, he'll hear this eventually, but I know he hasn't paid a mortgage in over 50 years. And to know that at being 83 years young, still preaching the word, still been able to go into the jails and prisons and minister to people, knowing how are you able to do that at the age of 83? My grandmother, who passed away back in 2012, she was an evangelist. And, I was raised to go knock on doors and ask people. My upbringing may have been different from yours, but I was raised in the church. I was raised in the church, not just on Sunday, but we had choir practice on Thursday night. On Friday night, we're cleaning the church, getting ready for Sunday. All right. And then every other month we have a revival that we're going to, or we're going to cook for everybody because we have a guest church, our sister church coming over. So I was raised in an environment where on Monday, my grandmother would pick us up and I'll say, where are we going? And I thought we was going to the park. We would go knock on doors and ask people, are they saved? Do they know the Lord Jesus Christ? And I was raised in that environment and understanding my grandmother being an evangelist. I didn't know what evangelizing meant. I didn't know what it meant, but all it was go out into the world and be a steward over people. Absolutely. A foot soldier, to learn how to steward people. I remember cleaning the church pews and making sure there were no candy wrappers, making sure that there was toilet paper in the bathroom. And so I learned not from finances initially. I learned by being a steward of the house of the Lord. I learned by making sure, and I remember going to my grandparents' house where everything had to be neat. There's nothing on the tables, nothing in the kitchen. Everything was put in its rightful place. And so I was raised to be a steward over everything that our family had. And so it just turned into finances. Now, I didn't come from a lot of money. Both of my parents are hardworking people. They've always worked as long as I've been, alive. And my dad's worked very, very hard to make sure that we had the necessities, but he wasn't giving us anything we didn't earn. So I was that person that, yes, I was an athlete. I was playing sports, but I had a job as well. I was 16 working a job, going to practice, doing all the things I needed to do. And I knew for a fact that I was getting ready to go play college basketball. But I still didn't think working was beneath. I needed to learn because I was raised to always constantly move, constantly be a steward over the things that you have. And just really thinking about that word stewardship. I could go back and I'll never forget this. I was 12 and I remember buying a bicycle with my little money I'd have made from watering the flowers at the church and everything. I made my little money and I get this bicycle, right? And I was the person, I was a tomboy, but I also, I like my nails done, hair done, all that as well, coach. And I remember buying this bicycle at Walmart and I'll never forget it. And we put it in the back of my dad's truck. And I put the bike in the backyard and I looked at it and I was like, okay, the bike looks good, but it don't look as good as it could if I cleaned it. I know it just left the store, but now that it's mine, now that I have ownership of it, I have to be a great steward of not only the money that I earned, but the possessions that I have to be a great steward of it. So now where I'm from the south side of Springfield, Ohio. And I went and I got some of my dad's tire shine. Now, y'all don't laugh at me. Do not laugh. But I went and shined up my bike tires. Now, what I did not know is that the brakes on the bike tires weren't going to work because them things were shining. I mean, I put that tire shine on them bike tires, but when I start riding my bike is clean. Y'all see my tires shining. I mean, I'm just learning from what I knew. My grandfather always cleaned the cars. My dad always washed the cars. I learned by doing, being a steward over the things that we have. But what I didn't know is that those brakes weren't going to work. Right. So I'm riding that bike, I'm squeezing those brakes. Those things were slippery. So it just shows me like stewardship in a whole. When we're looking at stewardship and being a steward over our finances, I'll be honest. I was blessed to be an entrepreneur at the age of 22. I walked right out of college with my undergrad, went to a private Christian school, and I was blessed to be able to walk across that stage with my degree. And it was different from other graduations though, because when I got my degree, I also got a Bible. And that's the difference between going to Christian university, private Christian university, and public. I got a Bible with my degree. I didn't get a check. I didn't get money in the mail. I didn't get anything. I got a Bible and my degree. And so when I walked across that stage, and I could hear my dad out in the audience saying, "That's my daughter." I was one of the few Black females that ever graduated from that college as a student athlete. And I got across the stage with that degree and Bible in hand. And this is one thing that I knew, Coach. Although I was broke with no money, I was not swimming in debt, because I allow athletics to be a tool to steward the finances of my family. I knew that we weren't going into debt because of the work that I put in as an athlete. I knew I wasn't going to be drowning in student loan debt, because I didn't let basketball use me. I used basketball as the tool to be able to be a good steward. So I knew I wasn't in debt coming out of college. So I became an entrepreneur at the age of 22. And to be honest, I made a lot of money. I started making a 6-figure income, Coach, when I was in my early 20s. And I was not a steward of money. I blew a lot of my money. I was buying tennis shoes and all the flashy things. I was caught in a little vanity at the time, because I didn't come from that. I didn't know that lifestyle existed. I could jump on a plane and go here, go there. And, I'm all across the country seeing friends and blowing money and not being a steward of it. And so I speak on stewardship today, not because I was great at it, but because I failed miserably at it in my early 20s. And so I talk to young people now about, do you really need that? What's the purpose of what we're buying? Do we really, is this a necessity? And so I do focus now on, being a better steward of my finances. I not only tithe, but I try and sow in different places. And that's just been huge for me over the time of my adulthood going into my 30s. At the age of 30, I just changed my whole mindset about being a better steward of my finances. So when you say stewardship and finances, I will tell you this one thing for all the coaches out there. And I got to give him credit, because he did tell me this back when I was, I believe I was 21, 22. And it's a gentleman by the name of Travis Trice. And he told me, if you ever want to coach high school basketball and be a head coach, if you ever want to do it and be free, make sure that you have a financial vehicle where you can provide financially for your entire program, because coaches really don't pay. Coaching really doesn't pay at the high school level. And so in the back of my mind, I always thought about, okay, when I go into coaching, let's make sure we actually have some finances, because we might run into that player that needs some shoes and that's not really in the budget, but it should be in my personal budget that my players don't go without. Regardless of what the school is doing, can I sow into my young people because I was a steward of my finances?
No, I think that's golden. And one of the first people that comes to my mind when you say that is Coach Jessica Kern Huff. And I mean,
absolutely,
like, she's talking to me the same way that you all did. It's almost like y'all are sitting there saying the same conversation to me. And I think that is key. That is key for anything. And I could tell there was a passion of that stewardship piece in you. That's why I had to expound, because I could just see it in there. And I think it's golden. I think it's, even in a nutshell, you explained it all, but the simple fact that we have to be good stewards of what God gives us, but also his people. And I think that is key. That is one of the key and golden terms of being a servant leader. So thank you for that, Coach, because I definitely have that down over here, and I'm going to revisit that in my own quiet time. Just as we're talking, and I'm loving this conversation, I just truly love these conversations with coaches. One of the things that I do see, there was never any yielding piece in you when I told you the format and the platform, that it is literally working to normalize faith in sports. And we're starting to see it. It overjoys my heart the way it is starting to just flood itself, and people are, feeling a little bit more comfortable saying where their help come from. And I tell people all the time, it's not so much about just the position, it's who positioned us there. If I were to ask you, what do you think that key piece is? Like, what is the key that can unlock the door and push this movement? Why do you think it's so hard for us in the athletic world to speak about our faith, feel comfortable in our faith? Because when I spoke to you about it, when I came to you, it was like, I know where my help come from. What's up? Let's do it. Everyone's in different paths. So can you talk about what do you think that resistance is, and what's some things we can do to work to normalize that, make people more comfortable, recognizing who position them where they are? Because someone said it best, and we hear it all the time, coaching is a ministry, and sport is a ministry. And we miss that sometimes, being able to pull people in, because everyone loves sports. And what better platform than that? So what's some ways that we can kind of take that hesitance back from our coaches and our leaders?
Absolutely. So when we think about sports and we think about athletics, we think about two words: aggression and dominance. And so when if you're coming at me and I'm an athlete, and especially, and I'll specify this, being a female athlete, I had to, growing up through sports and playing sports and then even coaching, there's a side of me that I know when I step on the court, although my players know me, although my parents know me, although the environment knows me, there's a level of dominance and aggression that I believe I have to bring to the table. And what's been hard for a lot of coaches, and I went through that myself, is when it comes to your faith, you're bringing a level of vulnerability. And I'm that coach, I don't clap, okay? I mean, we could be up 20 and down 20 like that. And so I always try and keep my emotions, I'm like a duck underwater, but I'm just floating through the water. And so above my shoulders, from my shoulders to the top of my head, I'm calm, coach. There's an aggression and there's a dominance that I believe I have to bring to the sport. There's some aggression and some dominance that I believe I have to communicate to my athletes. And so in sports, we get lost a lot of times in winning and losing, that we don't open up that piece, that vulnerable piece that we need to put it all together. And so as I started to learn through coaching, and my first coaching job was at a private Christian school. And I started learning that my kids, they saw my aggression. They saw how dominant I was. They saw I was an alpha female. But I also had some kids that I couldn't relate to because they were so vulnerable. I had to tap out of that aggression and dominant side and really tap into the, hey, listen, I'm just another human being like you. Listen, I went to church yesterday, or I missed church last week, or there are some issues that's going on with me as well. And so I think for coaches, because we have to change roles so much, there's some hesitation when it comes to us tapping in to our vulnerability. Now, I was fortunate to always be up under the tutelage of coaches that prayed for me. And so I was able to see, and I was exposed to coaches that I played for. When I played junior college ball, my head coach, Mr. Jeff Dillon, before every game, we're locking arms and praying. And that was really outside of my upbringing. That he was the first man that was not inside of the Rowe family that actually I knew that prayed for me. And then I have an assistant coaches when I transferred and became a Division II athlete, they prayed for our team. And I watch them still today. I watch them in their conference championship. I watch them pray over their players. And so, we can go from vulnerability to aggression to dominance to we got to get in the zone. But I think as coaches, if we can find that groove of, yes, I still got to be vulnerable and I still want to be able to walk in my faith. And I just think there's nothing that we can turn on and turn off. We just have to walk in it. And for me, that's where FCA helped me out so much in college, going through FCA and not being able to attend my home church. Fellowship of Christian Athletes. Has anybody ever been a part of that? FCA changed my life because I remember on Sundays, the quarterback, the wide receiver, the point guard, the pitcher, we all were in FCA. We were eating, we were fellowshipping, and I got to learn that, man, he's tackling people as a linebacker, but he's also quoting scripture. And so for our athletes, just giving them avenues and giving them tools. I get an athletic text every single day about athletes and faith. It's faith in action. And I get that text every single day to my phone, and it's something that I read because it's the bridge between coaching athletes and coaching people while you're walking in your faith. And so I just feel like the vulnerability and the dominance, how can we mesh that together, is really just getting out there and continuing to walk in our faith. I always tell coaches, yeah, we give glory to God first. All right. Well, when we win, but also I found myself losing 19 times, and that was a lot. My last high school head coaching job, we went 4-19, and I would come in the locker room and I was like, man, I just want to thank God that we're all healthy. Yes, we experienced loss, but we got to be grateful and have some gratitude and thank God that we walked out of here healthy. So we had to start finding all the little things inside of our what we call our loss, inside of our struggle, inside of our letdowns. And I had to start giving God glory for other things outside of winning.
Come on.
And so that's where the vulnerability part for me as a coach. And yes, you see the big coaches winning today on the big scale. I was fortunate just to get off of the phone the other day with one of my personal mentors, Coach Felicia Jack at the University of Buffalo. And she was pouring into me the other day, and she was just talking about, she was walking 6 miles on the phone talking to me about how we have to continue to step out and be examples for our young people, because the term working hard and being a hard worker in the Lord is not normal right now. And we have to continue to be that beacon of hope for people so that they can tap into that vulnerability, because that's where our mental health changes with our athletes and coaches. That's where our parents can't relate because they only see the aggressive side of Coach Rowe, or they only see the dominant side of Coach. But I do love parents to come into my post-game speeches, because I want you to hear what we're really focused on, not winning and losing, but we're raising up the next leaders of tomorrow.
Come on.
And so if we can be better, I'll say this, we can be better stewards of being vulnerable in our faith and actually expressing our gratitude for the little things and the small wins, even though we don't have the big victory yet. It's on its way. We just got to be good at celebrating those small wins, because everything we're doing is ordained by God. And so he's given us this position. All right. He's given us this position of leadership. But if we're walking with him, we want our young people to know that they can walk too. And it doesn't have to be a speech. It's just the way that we live. I want my girls to graduate from high school and college and be able to come back and say, Coach Rowe, you remember in the locker room when you told me that you were just grateful that every player walked out of that gym healthy and our bodies were whole, no limps, no aches, and no pains. They said, I remember that, and I teach that to my girls today. So these are the things that for me as a coach, it's not necessarily the championships, even though I've been there. It's not necessarily winning by the 30s and 40s, even though I've been there. It's really celebrating the smaller victories as you've experienced loss as a coach, and you start to find that vulnerable piece.
Coach, I mean, you're sitting here, it's almost like fire coming from your mouth. Like, it is truly, I'm like, goodness gracious. Okay. And I laugh because it's like about 3 cameras just turned on after that last 2-minute segment. And I think they felt what I felt. And I think as coaches and as leaders, we all know that feeling when we want so badly to be good stewards as leaders to these amazing blessings that God gives us. When he gives us people to lead, especially these babies, right? He entrusts us with these babies. And so we have to be mindful. And as you said, one of the things you said, I have to be a better steward of the small wins. And see, that's just the thing. We have our eyes on what we want, and we fail to realize the blessing in it all. I'll never forget, as a player, I was always taught by one of my coaches who I ended up coaching with her. And it was the player's prayer. And she would say, we would say other prayers, but she'd say, "Dear Lord, we pray each day that we'll play a good, clean game and win. But if you choose that we should lose, keep us from giving in. And I'm 34 years old. Okay. I was 12 and I remember that. And what ends up happening is now when I coach, when I first started coaching, I had them say that. And much like what you said, we think they don't hear us. You know, that 4-19 season, we've all been there, right?
Yep.
People don't get it. But when you place value on those things that people, as you said, the small wins, they're really big, because when you see them, and now we do have the young ladies who have their college degrees and they come and say, Coach, remember when you said, and it's like, they got it, they understood it. So what truly was the win? And I think that's amazing, Coach. Be good stewards of even of the small wins, because those things are forgotten. And those are things that build a foundation that you talked about when we started this conversation. That's gold, Coach.
Absolutely. And you know what,
y'all.
You know what I thought when I was talking about that, and we talk about the dominance, the aggression, and the vulnerability. I could go back to my favorite book in the Bible, Ruth.
Come on, don't you do that now. Don't you do that. That's one of my favorites, that Coach Rule. Don't you do that.
You know, and it's not even about Boaz. We could go there too. It's not about Boaz, but what it is, and I was studying, and I if you focus on just the loss that Naomi had.
Come on.
Just the loss that Naomi was experiencing. So when I talk about, I can lose 19 games, but I didn't lose a husband and 2 sons. So when we look at Naomi's life and the loss that she continued to suffer through, I mean, her husband moved over to Moab. They moved over to Moab. They left. Okay, they left and they went to a new land, and she trusted her husband, and that's where he died. So can you imagine in that story, because we hear that story so many different times, but the way that I interpretate that story and the way that I understand it is, I watched a woman lose all the men in her home, all the men that surrounded her, all the heads of households, and it was just mama and the daughter-in-laws. Now that could go either way. It's mama and the in-laws, or it's the girls and then my mother-in-law. And we supposed to roll with you? I gotta roll with you? So Naomi says, you know, I experienced so much loss. I gotta get out of here. I gotta go back home. I gotta go back home. And I was reading earlier, and I realized that when Naomi went back, everybody in the town start talking like, Naomi, you back? Is that Naomi? Is that Naomi? And if you put it in present day, everybody, they start texting each other like, y'all seen Naomi? Somebody done took a picture of her, put her on Facebook like, yo, is this Naomi? So the whole town's talking, they tweeting, they like hashtag Naomi's back, right? And Naomi said, that's not my name. My name is not Naomi. My name is Mara. And if you know anything about the book of Ruth, and you know what Mara means, Mara is Hebrew for bitter. It means bitter. And so Naomi suffered so much loss, she was bitter. So us as coaches, I want you to think about it. We experience loss. Let's be honest, we come in the locker rooms, we got a little bitterness because, yes, our players lost, but who's ultimately responsible? They don't interview the players after big losses. Guess who they interview? They interview us coaches. They don't write stories on the players after losses. Guess what they do? They interview us coaches. So the blame is always on us coaches when we experience loss, but the glory is always given to God and our athletes when we experience victory. So imagine being the Naomi and you come back to your hometown, you've been on a road trip, okay? You traveled 50 miles like Ruth and Naomi did on their way back to Bethlehem, right? So you experienced all this loss and everybody's calling you out your name and you like, nah, that's not my name. We just lost. That's not my name. I need a new name because I'm tired of losing. We need a new name. I might need a new program or a new place to go coach. And they're saying, no, listen, you know, God's going to provide, because see, she came back in the time of the harvest. But what she did is she had a servant leader with her. And so as coaches, yes, how do we build our faith? How do we continue to build our faith? It's who we bring with us as well. See, I'm a firm believer. You just don't let anybody on your coaching staff either.
Come on now.
See, I was walking with believers in my staff. One of my best friends in coaching, her husband owns a company called Saint Fuel. And it's about fueling the believers. And she's doing a podcast called The Confident Woman. And so I'm walking with people on my staff who not only believe, but they can relate to our young people. So if you look at the story of Ruth, how Ruth was that servant leader that went with her mother-in-law and said, I experienced, because Ruth, this is what people discount. Ruth experienced loss as well. See, Ruth lost it wasn't just Naomi who lost her husband and 2 sons. Ruth lost her own husband, and she was still able to serve and be a servant leader after she experienced loss. She was still able to go out and serve someone else. And that is very hard to do. It is a very hard job to continue to serve when you're still experiencing loss yourself. So that just took me to that story for a second, because I thought about how bitter Ruth was when she went back home. And Naomi said how bitter Naomi was. And Ruth said, nah, we're not about to live like this. I'm here to serve you. And Ruth went out and kept working and brought seed back into who? The sower, because Naomi sowed into that young girl's life, even through loss herself. And so you start watching one woman pouring into another woman, and she says, I'm not going to leave you. Even though you tried to push me away and try to tell me to go live my life, this is the path that I'm going on. So as coaches, yes, we'll be in, different programs, or we'll be coaching and stewarding different people. But as we experience loss, just that vulnerability, just tap into it, because I believe that, we're leading, but we're leading from the front, but we're also carrying a lot of stuff from the back, and people are watching it. They're trying to figure out how they can servant lead too. And here's just one thing I did learn. This is a practical thing for coaches. And if I could give anybody a nugget for today as coaches, something that's applicable to our coaching environment, something that that's practical to your programs, I'm a firm believer that, not because it's happened directly to me, but I've watched it so many times as coaches. Let's just put it in the high school realm, and you can apply it to college as well. But as freshmen, when those freshman young ladies come in, they're called freshmen. Let's be honest, some have gotten picked on. Some people have been bullied, upperclassmen. Well, any program that I'm a part of that I'm leading, my seniors get the basketballs. They carry the basketballs. My seniors organize the jerseys. My upperclassmen, my leaders are the ones who do more work than because where is leadership taught? It can't be taught at the bottom, because our freshmen do not know. And so my seniors are expected to do the servant leadership work. My seniors serve the freshmen at our pregame meals. My seniors lead prayer. My seniors help with laundry. My seniors do all of the servant leadership work. Why? And they were resistant to it. They were resistant in the beginning because they felt freshmen should have to do all the work. And I know in the pros, they call that, the rookies got to do all the work. They make the rookies do everything in the pros. But imagine, what if you're LeBron James, and I'm using him for an example. What if LeBron was that servant that said, here, rookie, here, I bought you this book because this is what got me to where I'm at today. Imagine if we start teaching our athletes that the servant leaders are not the best players, but they're the people that we expect. They're who we call captain. They're who we call seniors. And on your way out, I want you to know, so that when you come in as freshmen for your university, or you go in as a rookie to the pros, or you go professional in anything, the last memory of you working with me as your coach is you was a servant leader your last year. You wasn't being served your last year.
Let me tell you something. You know that my knee been cutting up these past weeks. You've been out here, so you know. I'm about to get up. I told him, I said, I'm about to run up out of here. She acting like she don't know my knee been bothering me. But I think that is golden, like even all the way back to taking it to the book, taking it to the word. You can never go wrong when you take it to the word. And more than anything, that implementation. There's a coach here in Tallahassee, Coach Eli at Rickards High School, and he does the same thing that actually they won a couple years back. And that is one of the things that he spoke about in his interview. And I love that. I feel that we talk about it all the time. Coach Jada Williams at Coastal Carolina, she says, Chelsea, it's crazy how we try to say that these young people and people need to be better leaders, but who taught them? who gave them the template, who showed them the way. So we're expecting them to be these things. That's like you come on a job and it's your first day and they say, okay, get to work.
Right.
Where do I begin? And so I love that for you to start with that senior. And then one of the things it's going to teach those seniors too is they're now off in the world. And if we're looking at the balance equation, they fall from the top back to the bottom. Amazing. Even if you take it back, yes, Coach Huff, he said investment over entitlement. I love that. But even if you take it back to, you know, just your home, you know, like we talked about, you and I both, we grew up the old school, right? You serve the children, right? You showed them the way. And now when I serve, when I cook, I'm making sure my mom gets this. I'm making, you know what I'm saying? The older people gonna go, the men, you know what I'm saying? Men make sure, hold on, then we'll take care of the men. That's just how it went. And so when you apply that to your programs, I love that, because that is a shift that will truly teach servant leadership, because in order, we must first serve.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I'm gonna pause right there, y'all, because I'm telling you, y'all know I can get carried away, and Coach, she's showing out. So, you know, she clearly don't get me carried away. I'm gonna take a second to open the floor up for any questions, comments, or anything that you have, either for Coach Rose, something she said, or just anything for the greater of this conversation. Don't be shy, no raise hands here, just unmute yourself and let it rip.
I'm here. I've been listening as I've been playing Frisbee, so I've been playing Ultimate Frisbee and still trying to get my Bible study in, y'all, but I absolutely love the message today. I feel you on being able to prioritize and understand that something that seems so big to us is not too big for God. And so I really appreciate it. I'm still listening, but I'm gonna be running up and down the field, but I wanted to jump in and say thank you, Coach, for the word. Thank you, Chelsea, of course. Love y'all.
We appreciate you, Shannon. We love you too, boo. Get that workout in. I ain't mad at you.
Yes, gotta get that cardio in.
I'll go. So hey, Coach Rowe, that's my buddy.
Coach KB, I'm gonna see you this weekend.
Yes. Well, maybe we'll talk later.
All right.
But no, like my girl said, I came in a little bit later, had some things to do, but I need to get my Bible study, and my girl was on. But it's like just kind of seeing how you are like in the basketball role, and then now coming on here and seeing the servant leadership in your journey. What I caught is awesome. I feel like more connected to you, and that's cool to me. But just like we had this conversation too, like just the things that like with the senior serving, like I would never thought about it that way. You just like the things that you have said today, it just makes me think like, yeah, that's kind of cool. Like I might want to try that. So I appreciate you coming on and sharing with everybody. Think it's great, and keep going. I definitely need to hear about the vulnerability as well too. But I just want to let you know, I respect you, you know that, and just taking a lot of stuff away from you sharing. So appreciate you.
Thanks, Coach. Appreciate you.
Hey guys, I just wanted to hop on real quick, and I apologize for all the wind. I'm trying to find a quiet place in my house, and if anybody you know a Trice, we don't have too many quiet places. But I just wanted to say thank you for this platform. It's definitely needed, and it's definitely an honor to be to like know Danielle and to see her shine at this place in her life. So to whom much is given, much is required. Man, like doors are being opened, and the obedience is now going to be at a different level, like a totally different level. So the fasting and praying that you're doing, it's not gone in vain. Sorry, it's not gone in vain at all. He's honoring your sacrifices. He's honoring your tears. Okay, that's all I'm going to say. I appreciate y'all letting me jump on this Zoom. Good job, Danielle. And thanks again, Miss Chelsea.
No, thank you. You about to have me run too. You better speak it today, Miss Jules. I love it. Do we have anybody else? I don't want to skip anybody. Okay, cool. Now, Coach, there are a few more questions I have to give you. I say this every call. You listened, you know what's coming, because they are the two questions that kind of initiate and seal the deal on you joining the servant leader family. All right. And
Absolutely.
I already know I'm actually like holding on to my chair because, again, I told you now, be kind to the knee with your answers. Okay. So the first one, and people know this, is a huge practice that I use in just my daily walk, just to keep myself grounded. Much of the things that you said before, remembering the small wins, right? When things don't go right in our day, it's easy to quickly say, oh, my day was bad. Man, I prayed for this and I didn't get it. Sometimes those prayers that he didn't answer the way we wanted to is still a blessing. So one of the things that I do each morning, sometimes it is a mental Rolodex, and sometimes I write it, but I do my God is devotion, where I just basically say God is, and I let it rip, because we have to remind ourselves for what he is, just alone, what he has done, what he didn't do. And I'll just keep saying, he's my healer, and I let it rip. So on those days where I feel like I can't seek him and find him, I'll remember that the same God that did it before, he can do it again. But for you, you don't get a Rolodex. You only get one answer. So if I say God is, and I left a blank, Danielle Rowe, God is what?
God is a redeemer.
Come on here.
He's a redeemer.
That is one of my favorite songs, first of all. I know that my Redeemer lives, okay? So don't get me started. Why did you choose that?
I choose that because of one of my favorite verses. And it's a verse that I look at every day. It's a verse that I have a notebook and I have my notebook here. And if you read the title, it says her ideas are coming to life. One of my favorite verses, and it has that redemptive spirit to it. It is Hebrews 12:1. And it talks about being surrounded by a great cloud of witnesses. And about us running our own race, and anything things that hinder us, things that entangle us, just focused on that redemption. And we talk about loss, we talk about wins, we talk about small victories or big losses and small wins inside of there. It's all about redemption. And I know that God is a redeemer. And so every time that I go out and coach, every time that I go out and focus on, the things that I have to do in my daily walk, even if I fail, I know I can get back up, because he is a redemptive God. God is a redeemer. And so that's one thing. And I know that word was spoken over to me years ago, and it's coming to pass. And so God is redeeming a lot of time right now. I went on a fasting journey for 30 days, but my last 30 days of being in my 20s, God told me to fast for 30 days. And he said, when you roll over into your 30s that morning, you're going to wake up and I'm going to redeem the time. What's going to take place in 3 years, all right, is going to trump your entire 20s. And I had no idea what that meant, but God wanted me to fast and pray my last days and I called it 30. They have a show on ESPN called 30 for 30.
Come on.
I called mine 30 and 30. And so I got on Facebook Live, and any of you could go to my Facebook and you can go back to 2018 in the end of January. My birthday is February 21st. And so I started that fast at the end of January, and I fasted for 30 days. And so on my 30th day, I did a Facebook Live every day. That was a part of my fast. God told me to get on Facebook, go live, and you have to talk about something that you've learned in your 20s. Because we're getting ready to get rid of the 20s and we're walking in the 30s. And he said that Jesus it did his greatest works between the age of 30 and 33. And so I had to be I'm still focused, but at the age of 30, I became it's just something, God just did something to me. And he just said, listen, I'm going to redeem the time. And so what it took you 10 years to get to, from 20 to 30, from 30 to 33, I'm going to redeem all that time where you wasn't a good steward of your money, of your relationships, of things that you had possessions of. And I'm going to call you between 30 and 33 to do my works and to start working for me. And I'll tell you, Coach, that redemption, God is a redeemer. During that time, as a player and as a coach prior in my 20s, I didn't have the success that I wanted. Even in college, tore my ACL, but, I still could jump though. I still got my points. I still rebounded that ball. I still played defense. I did all of those things, but the day I turned 30, I felt like God did something to me. And he said, you're going to walk with me now. And everything that you touch, I'm going to bless it as long as you're obedient. And I got a call off of Twitter. I got a guy text me off of Twitter and said, hey, listen, that's when at 30, I became the grassroots director of that program. God was a redeemer. He said, we're not just going to coach one team. I want you to coach 7. Okay. I want you to be a steward over 7 teams of 10. It's not just 7 families, 70 families, 7 times 10. He said, I'm going to redeem the time and I'm going to give you stewardship over more. So at 30, that was my first decision. The next decision, I got a call to coach college basketball. And it was from my JUCO that I played at. And I remember they invited me to an open gym and I was like, I could always come to open gym. I didn't bring my shoes though. And I walked in the open gym and they offered me to be associate head coach and recruiting coordinator of that college. And I said, I've never coached college before. They said, that's not a requirement when you've been here and your spirit is still here. And I took that position, Coach. And we went NJCAA JUCO Division II national championship run, 2019-20 season, and 2018-19, I'm sorry. And we took that program 28-6, lost in the Elite 8, Sinclair College out in Arkansas, where we played in that national tourney run. And the crazy part, Coach, is we did it with 6 young ladies all season. And we did it with 6 JUCO kids. And people always ask me today, Coach, when you was up there cutting that net and you held that net, and I carry that net with me everywhere that I go. I have another piece of net in my car because we cut a couple nets down that season. And they're like, Coach, when you walked up on that ladder, what do you think? I said, I never cut net down as a player. God is a redeemer. He said, I'm cutting it down as coach. He said, I was changing your title. I was changing your name, but I also wanted you to be able to do it from a place of serving.
Come on.
And so that was the first time. So we're still in 30 to 33. And so when I walked off of that ladder and I checked my cell phone, I got a call from one of my favorite school districts in the country. And they said, hey, we got 60 applicants and we're only interviewing 3. I know you didn't apply, but can you come interview? God is a redeemer. He said, I'm going to give you the job that you want, the job that you've been praying for, the job that you've been dressing for. Because I don't dress according to the job that I have. I dress for the job that I want. And so I just started getting these calls and opportunities. And then God gave me a vision. And that's where I'm founding that company. And I just turned 33, Coach, February 21st. And God said, all right, it's time. At 33, he said he gave his life. He voluntarily gave his life for us at the age of 33. And he told me between 30 and 33, that's all training to be a steward, to be a servant leader. But at 33, we launching this thing. And I'm out in Texas right now, Coach, as I share with you. I've been out here since Saturday. And I was on a plane, and I'll tell you what, God showed me on the plane. He said, listen, when you were on the runway, you've been on that runway between 30 and 33. And when you get up in this air, I know you're going out to Texas to do business, but he said, when you get in this air, you have hit some turbulence because we got to get past the clouds. But to get from where I have you to where I ultimately want you to go, where I have you going, It's above the clouds, because that's the fastest way I can get you there. So don't worry about the turbulence. Don't worry about the jerking every now and again. You got to get to the final destination. And so I was looking out of my window and I seen the wings and I seen the clouds, and I was like, wow, God will lift you up and redeem your time. He will get you from point A to point B. He will get me from Ohio to Texas, but I can't do it. It's 15, 16 hours if I stay on the ground doing it my way. But he said, if you can get up to me, if you can get up in the air where I am, if you can focus on lifting up your head where your actual help comes from, he said, I'm going to lift you up over all of that stuff and get you to where I called you to be. And when I think about that, I think about one of my favorite shows, and I'll end it on this, Coach. I think about my favorite show, The Price is Right. And when someone's sitting in their stands and they call your name, can y'all go back? This is just my childhood. I don't know if it's y'all's, but
Come on, I'm with you. I'm with you.
We watched The Price is Right, right? And y'all remember Bob Barker? They would yell the names though. And people would scream and run and celebrate when their name was called all the way to their contestant spot. And I want to ask everybody a question. When they called their name, you seen those people celebrating. Here's the question, Coach. What had they won yet? They hadn't won anything.
I ain't gonna answer because I know where you're going with it. Come on now.
They hadn't won anything.
Teach
but
us.
guess what God showed me? God said, listen, they haven't won anything. Even though I called them to a place, they haven't really experienced victory yet. What are they doing? God said, I want you to worship. I want you to praise me on your way to what I have for you. Yes, I called your name. Yes, I called you to a place. You don't know what's getting ready to take place. But he said, even in those clouds, I was thinking, Coach, he said, I want you to praise me on your way to where I have you going. And so I just have to give you that, because I thought about The Price is Right, where they march and they celebrate down to the contestant spot. And you think about it, what have they won? They haven't won anything yet. But they are faithful in their worship. And that's where I get excited, Coach. So I'm going to just stop there because I'm starting to hear my favorite pastors come out, the people I listen to, from Pastor Keon Henderson to Roberts to Pastor Mike McClure Jr., the people I plug into on a daily basis, Coach. And so I'm just excited about, that process, and God's a redeemer.
You know what? See, you better be glad it's virtual, because it would have came right over there to Texas, okay? Girl, you on one today, but I'm telling you, and another attachment to that, exactly. You got mic drop, exactly, Caitlin. That's what I'm saying. I'm sitting here like, whatever, we done, peace out. Because that's golden. Coach Joni Taylor, she said this when she was on. She was like, if you pray to God for it, you better go ahead and praise him for it, because it's happening, right? And that piece that I saw in that, Coach, was when those individuals, they call you Danielle Rowe, come on down. I'm not sitting there like, man, they ain't call me. I'm cheering, because the old school pastor would tell us, you better praise him when somebody else is going through and getting their blessings, because he's in the neighborhood. And we'll see the quotes and memes all the time. It says some of us can't get somewhere because we don't want to applaud anybody else's successes. You got to root for other people in order for you to win too. But I love what you said, having the faith in the process, getting that position to be blessed by him. And you better praise your way there. I'm trying to tell you, come on here. You're showing out today. Lord of mercy.
He's a redeemer.
Come on, he is. And I'm telling you, and not even to prolong this time, because we're about to close up. You got one more in you. And I'm a little bit scared to ask it, because see, I asked one word. She gave a whole word, right? And so I said this because I know, and we know what a redeemer is spiritually, but the teacher in me said, Chelsea, real quick while she's talking, look it up. And it says to compensate for the faults or bad aspects of something. Now we know we part flesh too, and every day, every single day, we don't deserve it, yet he blesses us anyway, right? And I love how you transitioned everything that you said. You said, he didn't give it to me as a player. He gave it to me as a coach. So I get it from the position of serving. Oh my goodness. You can tell you got me right. I'm trying to stay on here. But you got me with that, because I think so often it started out with the first line you said, where we don't appreciate or recognize the wins that God is truly trying to give us.
Absolutely.
That's a wrap. Mic drop, Caitlin, you right. Yeah. All right. Now, of course, this is the Servant Leader Coaches Bible Study, where servant leadership are the two focal points that we're trying to embed into all of these coaches and all of these leaders. We see it on taglines, people say it all the time, but much like you said, it is something that has to be instilled, taught, and given the foundation of. I'm on a mission of creating the longest but truest definition, and we're up to like 150 definitions. So I'm adding you to the chain. If I were to ask Coach Danielle Rowe, what is servant leadership? What would you say servant leadership is?
Servant leadership, Coach, is number one. Let's look at the word, the root word, serve. It is given enough of yourself to build somebody else, even if that building somebody else is above yourself. And when I look at how I was raised, and I look at the foundations of a lot of the leaders that I've been able to sit up underneath, and I look at their life today, and I ask myself, what made them a servant leader? What made them, what allowed me to give that title to them? Because it's not a title that we should take lightly. But a servant leader is able to give of themselves enough to lift somebody else up, even if it's above where you are. See, if you can help somebody get whatever it is that they're praying for, if you could be, see, you're just one, you're one yes. I'm one yes of saying, yes, I can help you. I'm one yes of saying, yes, I can serve you. I can lead you. I'm one yes to somebody else's breakthrough. And so when I look at serving and I look at the word leader, and we add those two together, because we all know this, you could be a leader, but you could be a negative leader as well.
Mm-hmm.
You could be an influencer and be a negative influencer as well.
For sure.
So when we talk about servant leader, we're talking about serving and lifting. We're talking about the lifters of our head, where Jesus said, you know, I'm gonna give you life, and you'll have life more abundantly. He said, I want to serve you. He gave up his life for us. So we're not giving our life to people. We're giving pieces of our life as servant leaders. We're giving moments in time of ourselves. And God said, you know, everything that you're given, this is what he told me. He told me this specific. He told Danielle Rowe this, you're giving of yours. I'm going to redeem that time. I'm going to redeem that time. So as a servant leader, we are helping someone get to a place, even if it's above ourselves. And that's where the foundation of leadership comes from. When I decide that I'm going to take on a role, be a founder of a company, we call Heels on the Hardwood. When I say I'm going to, and that's all about leadership and raising up women in today's society, and empowering them to do more, empowering them to be great leaders. When we focus on, you know, lifting someone up above ourselves, that's hard for a lot of people to do, but we know that that pride comes before the fall. And so the servant is not prideful. They are not boastful. They are a leader that lifts. And I always say the word L in leader stands for lifting everyone. That's how we start to lead. We lift everyone. And so that's what servant leadership is all to me. It is serving someone, whatever it is that they need, whether it's prayer, whether, hey, listen, like someone did to me the other day, they paid for my meal. They said the car in front of you already paid. I was like, wow, they maybe they couldn't serve with their time, but they served with their acts of kindness. They were kind. How can we serve someone to make their life better, not to make their life worse? How can we serve and lift someone, even if we're lifting them above the places that we are, because we hold the mantle to Christ? God gave us the ability to speak life over people, even if they don't have the ability to do it themselves. And so we as coaches, we have been giving us a task, and that task is to lead people not to places that we want them to go, but really dig deep into those individuals that we're called to lead and get them to a place that we know God needs them to get to. And that's what servant leadership is all about.
I can't with you. I'm just not. I'm just not, okay? I'm just not gonna do this with you. I mean, I honestly, in all seriousness, I think that's amazing. And all of that was golden. But one of the things that stuck out to me and just pierced me that I loved it is helping others to receive what they have been praying for.
Hard, but it has to be done.
Even if it means that they will lift higher than where I am. That's huge.
Huge.
And I won't even go down that road or where I was going to take that. All right. We'll maybe do that in an after show one day. I think that is golden because as servant leaders, it is our job to make others better. You said it best, to lift and serve, even if that means that we are to place them and their calling is higher than mine. It's not about that. But so often we don't do our purpose. We don't do what God has called us to do because we fear someone getting over us. There's a whole nother call for a whole nother.
Yep, absolutely.
Girl, you have shown out today. I'm not shocked. I'm not shocked at all. I mean, I should have put my knee brace on, but I truly do appreciate the gems that you drop. You get some silent hand claps here for sure with some servant leaders who have been on, who's going to come on. And I mean, there's just so much that you put out here and you can tell that you're passionate. You're passionate about the call that God has placed on you in the sports arena and in each endeavor he's placed you in. But more than anything, it's amazing to see a person who recognizes where they've been, the errors, and how God has redeemed and now restored. And so I love that. I appreciate you for your time. I appreciate you for your words because I felt like, and I know for a fact everybody else on this call too, within this hour, we have gotten better. And that's what it's all about. I normally close out in prayer, homie, but see, you just got fire over there on you. So I'm going to ask you if you would mind closing us out in prayer today because you are showing all the way out today. Do you mind?
I don't mind at all. I don't mind at all. I've been prepped. All
right, for sure.
But before I do that, Coach, I do want to thank you for, again, being a steward of being a steward over what God has given you and your family. And I do want to take the time and congratulate you on, you know, the baby coming, your family.
Thank you.
I hope that, you know, God's able to, you know, bless your family with perfect health and everything. And so everybody that's on here with Coach Chelsea, and you've been plugging into the coach's Bible study, and we've been locked down or we've been shut in or like coaches, we've been shut out. Just know that there is a place for you to tie in and plug into. But I'll close us out in prayer, Coach, and I'm excited to do that. And again, thank you so much for having me on. And
thank you.
We can grow this thing, and I can't wait for the first live revival. I'm speaking that over you, Coach.
Come on here. Come on here. I'm about to start trying to think about it.
So we'll close it out in prayer. Gracious Heavenly Father, I just want to bring us all here as coaches and leaders all across the world. Those of you who are going to listen to this, you'll see this, you'll hear this. I want you to just, you know, open up your mind and open up your heart. Know that God is a redeemer. Lord, I just want to take this time and just to pray over Coach Chelsea and her family, Lord, that they are completely healthy during her new pregnancy. I've seen that her daughter is going to go in the WNBA draft 2034. We've been watching, Lord. We know that she has been faithful. This is not about me, Lord. I am just a servant on this Zoom tonight. I am just a vessel that is here to be able to expand the ministry that God has given her. So I just want to thank every single person who has been on. I want to pray over every family who has taken the time out of their busy schedule to be on here. Every single coach. God, put a shield of protection over our coaches. There have been coaches gunned down lately. There have been coaches who have been injured. There have been coaches who have been in brawls. I just want to take the time to pray over the environments and the gyms that our young people are in, that we are stewards over, our locker rooms. Just God, just bless all the arenas of sports and all the things that God has been able to give us, and the tools and just everything that we have to give to our, not just our young people, but other families. God, give us the words to speak to parents. Give us the humility to speak and say hi to other coaches that we have rivaled, and now they really need to see the Jesus in us. So Lord, I just ask that you take this time and not only continue to watch over us and keep us safe, but in this time, continue to pour into us and give us the words and the courage to go out and serve our young people. God, you are the number one servant leader. You are the number one servant leader that we get to follow. I know that your name was made great because your ability to serve, not just to serve me and my family, not just to serve Coach Chelsea and her family, but every single living, breathing soul. You gave your life so that you could serve the masses. So I just want to take this time and say thank you for everything that you do. Yes, Lord, you are a redeemer, and I praise your name. We praise your name each and every day, and we give thanks to the small wins, even when we have big losses. And Lord, we take this time to give ourselves 100% to you as we walk in your will, and your will be done as the servant leaders that we are, and we are becoming day by day. And with all praise, we give glory to you. Amen.
Amen. Woo! I can't with you, okay? I can't. Amen. You are now officially a part of the servant leader family. So
hey,
we appreciate you. Take your shoes off and stay a while. No, but we really appreciate you so much. You are on fire, my friend, my sister, for Christ. And I appreciate it. It permeates through this video. It permeates through every part of it. And I know that those that are listening now and those that will listen will be made better for it. So I thank you so much. I really do. And I
so much, Coach.
Continue to talk. I thank you guys for tapping in. Thank you, everybody, for listening. If you need us, all you have to do is reach out, and we'll see you on Wednesday at 6 p.m. with Coach Cal Cochran.